So this is one that I've actually wanted to talk about for a while now, which is Serpent's Sting Single Target Damage Spender. Or rather, the better question is, where is it? And the answer is it has been waved in front of our faces flagrantly, non-stop. This is actually something that has kind of bugged me from when we saw Toxicon initially, because the tooltip was hovered over and we like took that and then we started analyzing it after translating it and being like, it just, how to say it, it didn't make sense. A low 300 potency, which is going to be the same as Dosis, the basic single target spammable, and that's the only payoff for the Serpent Sting system, that just rubbed a lot of people, including myself, the wrong way, just being like, really? To be blunt about it, think about it in a raid situation, which is going to be single target. That kind of just is meh. I don't want to say it sucks, but meh. This really got a lot of us thinking. We don't know the full picture here, and really set us out on the goal to try and find out what is going on. Conclusion is that this ability, this single target ability, is not even on the hotbars at all when Yoshi P was showing the live letter. So likewise, we obviously don't have an icon for it, but it's something that we have seen very much waved in front of our faces. Looking back many months ago to the Endwalker trailer, you see Alphino show up, and then the new lists are going to go spinning around and shooting the target. It was incredibly flashy, and that was the first time that we saw the Sage, although most people, including myself, were going, wait, what the hell's this? What are these floating things? And yes, that's a CGI trailer, which also means that's expensive, but trailers are trailers and doesn't mean anything, right? It could just be something outside the game just for a flashy effect, right? No. Because we have seen this ability also be flaunted right in front of us multiple times. It is cast so many times in this video in the Endwalker benchmark trailer where the Sage is pretty much spamming this ability. Anyone that watched the trailer saw this for sure themselves. So likewise, the CGI trailer is definitely going to be an expensive endeavor, and they would want to show off something that's a pretty impressive ability. Then we see it being spammed in there, but fascinatingly enough, we don't see it at all in the job actions trailer where all the jobs are doing their actions, and we don't see it being done by Yoshi P during the live letter during the Sage demonstration, and it's like, this isn't on your bars. And what is really interesting is at this point of the Sage's toolkit, we know every single ability on there other than 3 that we kind of have a really solid idea on. This one ability is translated to Zoe, which is likely a recitation equivalent. This is also being said because the Scholar and Sage's toolkits are basically identical to one another, and because recitation does not have an equivalent in the Sage's kit, and so almost 90% sure that this is exactly recitation. Then this other icon, which has like the hand of the Sage thrown up with I guess a moon or something with the stars falling down. I hate to admit it, but this is pretty much, even without going further, just based off of the icon, probably going to be what the developers were speaking about in their live letter interview, because they were going at length saying how White Mage has holy such a powerful ability, and how they want to really give the other healers something that is kind of like Holy Stun, but flavor to themselves. I'm actually going to let that play in the background here. Likewise, we saw this literally precipitate itself in terms of the Astros kit in literally the shooting stars effect. So it would make perfect sense for the Sage to also be included in that, because they were saying that as like a broad stroke, like all the healers for this. And I mean, if we look at the basic Disc Crazy ability, it is literally just the most flat out, flat damage AoE ability you can get. This leaves us with this little icon that looks like a barrier with the heart in the middle, and while a lot of people, including myself, have postulated that maybe by chance this could be a deployment tactics equivalent, just going off of the icon, it looks to be different, because deployment tactics icon is really focused on the other and the spreading, whereas this seems to really be focusing on the heart, which honestly the dev team does such a good job with these icons that sometimes it's they are really telling in and of themselves. Not always though, obviously, but I'm not convinced on this one. This is the one that we actually really have no idea what this is doing. Another thing is, when we look at Toxicon, it is an AoE version of a skill. Its potency is 330, which is exactly the same basic single target spammable Dosis ability. One noteworthy change about it is it is instant cast, but it is still on the GCD, so be careful guys, it is still on the GCD, but since it's instant cast, one could successfully make the argument that it can assist with movement as well as double weaving, which Dosis, and just from playing Ast currently, because that's what the single target skills for all the healers are going to be, you can single weave, but you can't double weave comfortably. You're going to clip pretty hard. But it seems very odd for an entire mechanic like the Serpent's Sting, which is literally especially on the gauge, to be dedicated just to that. Here's where I need to say, like, Toxicon even in AoE is not blowing me away. I'm thinking that this is an ability that they're definitely maybe gonna look at buffing, because even in AoE situations, you look at the AoE ability Dyscrasia, which by default instant cast, dealing 170 potency, 330 divided by 2 is just 165. This is really basic math, guys, I know, but it's important to get this down. But even in an AoE situation, the point is Toxicon is still far from earth-shattering. It doesn't seem like that big of a reward. It seems like something like you can take it or you can leave it. You could maybe just completely take it off of your hotbars if you really want to be cheeky. So AoE, still and single target, Instead, when you really take a look at other mechanics like the Warrior, they have Fell Cleave single target versus Decimate, which is going to be the AoE version. Black Mage has Xenoglossy versus Foul. Paladin has Holy Spirit versus Holy Circle AoE. Dark Knight has Edge of Shadow versus Flood of Shadow. Let's explore the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is rewarding the player for essentially a free cast of Edge of Shadow or Flood of Shadow, which, comparing them to even the top single target combo of their 1-2-3 combo, which is going to be Soul Eater, this is still hitting harder than Soul Eater by a significant portion. Both single target and AoE versions are hitting incredibly hard for single target and AoE. Fundamentally, this is a system that rewards you for using your shield properly, so now you get the MP back for it and can use that on damage, or you're forced to use it on damage, I guess, which is really allowing the double dipping and rewarding using your shield properly, really getting your return from that initial trade-off of casting the shield. What's even more interesting is that when you look at the White Mage's Lily system, which White Mage is obviously a healer already, you get a Lily every 20 seconds that you can spend on 2 different abilities, AoE Afflatus Rapture or single target Afflatus Solus. Each of these casts is going to give you a single charge per ability that you use of Blood Lily. 3 charges of the Blood Lily gauge can then be used to cast Afflatus Rapture at 900 potency. Note that Afflatus Rapture and Afflatus Solus are both on the GCD, as is Afflatus Misery. What this Afflatus Misery system is doing is that it's a massive spike of potency damage built purely around the idea that you have used your special on GCD Afflatus heals, 3 GCDs of heals rather than 3 GCDs of more glare. This of course does result in a general damage loss because 4 times 300 is going to be 1200. But Afflatus Misery is only 900, so 900 divided by 4 is just 225. Just because those were heals that you should have been casting in the first place, you kind of really are reclaiming 225 potency out of the 300 glare potency. So I and many others view it as a real attempt for the developers to ease your concern over casting the heals rather than using DPS spells. It's not a one-to-one trade-off, like you're not doubling it because it's not 1200, but you are getting something back. This is really what the Serpent's Sting gauge is doing, or what I believe and others believe it is trying to do. It's a blending of the Dark Knight and White Mage's Lily systems into a system that rewards you for properly managing your shields, rather than mindlessly spamming them for charges they actually need to break with, like the Dark Knight shield. Can you imagine, like, if you could stockpile them literally by spamming Eucrasia Docious? That made the entire system a joke. So Toxicon that we've already seen is the reward that you're going to be using in AoE situations like dungeons. Now the single target skill is the reward that you get for doing in raids, and I and others remain morbidly unconvinced that we've seen that skill at all, including on the hotbars yet. But truly what we're going to see for the Sage's gameplay loop is that it's going to come down to the Sage trying to mitigate various genuine instances of incoming damage that are going to break the shield to stack up 3 charges of Serpent's Sting. And when the entire raid pops their cooldowns and the raid buff window opens up, the Sage will throw out the significantly stronger Serpent's Sting charges into that raid buff window to optimize how much potency of damage they can fit into that 15 or so second gap. Likely we're going to have a charge or 2 of Phlegma and a Eucrasia Dosis refresh, but I'm spoiling my next video, so I'm gonna shut up. I did a lot of thinking on this, guys. Anyhow, that's it for this video, so let me know what you guys are actually thinking in the comments. I, for one, actually am dreading this slow countdown of days to Endwalker. I just want to play the Sage right meow. Patience. I don't have any patience.